Hello, my name is Jürgen Timm. I am the chairman of the Highendsociety, among other things, the organizer of the High End in Munich. And today, we are here to introduce our association member Canton. Günther, 50 years of Canton, an incredibly long time. How does one come up with the idea of founding a speaker factory?
Which factory to establish? Could now say it can only be speakers. So we were a very strong team right from the start. Then in '72 we became self-employed. We then looked for a building. Where should we do this? And that's how we came across this empty school and the vacant teacher's house. We only realized a few months later that it was actually much too small. At that time, the companies Hiko and Braun were our competitors. We started with 5 and 30 employees, and it went wonderfully fast. In the third year, we were already selling, manufacturing, and selling speakers very precisely. Then in '75, it was built. Then the capacity or manufacturing became easier. It could also be manufactured that way. Otherwise, we were sitting relatively close together. At times, we had a peak of 160 employees here at Canton in Niederlaugen. I'm not someone who looks back easily. I am more the type who thinks forward easily. And looking forward, that brings me back to the word happiness. The happiness was that Christoph was there, my son-in-law Christoph, and he also had a strong interest when we talked about how things could continue here and so on. There, just give me a few days, and he came back relatively quickly and then ultimately nodded. And since then, Christoph has been doing it. And I have to say, that is again the word happiness in relation to my happiness or our happiness.
Christoph, Canton has a huge success story behind it. Where does Canton stand today with you as managing director?
On solid feet, I would say. What we just heard from Günther, the company has been solidly built for 50 years, now 52 years, always on a solid financial foundation. And what he just said, still a family business, and I am allowed to continue now. We are allowed to continue.
Moritz, when you enter, you immediately see a very impressive wall with many products from the ER years and then a Hall of Fame, I would say. What is it all about?
A few years ago, we completely renovated everything nicely. For there was much more retro charm than is visible today. And this wall indeed simply symbolizes the classic products from the past. Starting with the LE, a very small compact speaker that was the beginning, up to the Ergo from 1979 as the first floor standing speaker, and including car hi-fi products with the HC or Gamma as amplifiers, as well as switching units. We certainly have a lot to tell from history. And this is just a fraction of the products from history, but it is meant to symbolize everything we have produced in the past, not just speakers.
Right next to the Hall of Fame, I see more rooms. What is hidden behind these doors?
As part of the renovation, we not only renewed the cafeteria, which is completely new for us employees, but also completely renovated 2 listening rooms, acoustically designed so that we can listen to music very well here and also watch films. We can also present a home theater. One of the reasons we did this was to open up for vendor events that like to come here, as well as for our customers who also come here for consultations. So they can receive advice in good facilities with our expertise and then also happily go to vendors for further discussions and demonstrations and enjoy.
Hello Frank, greetings to you.
Hey, greetings to you.
I have a few questions for you. Can we go over there for a moment?
Yes, of course, we can do that.
Great. Frank, how does one actually become a developer? And what exactly does your area of responsibility here at Canton encompass?
How does one become a developer? That's certainly a good question. How does one do that? For me, it's about a strong affinity for music and listening to music. And in that context, I would say I have turned my hobby into a profession.
How is a product like a speaker created? How should I imagine that? What is your process?
Many things initially arise in the mind, and then we also develop them on the computer beforehand. This means that certain things can be pre-simulated, and target functions can also be defined in advance. Development involves understanding in a comprehensive and detailed manner the underlying physics, defining and comprehending the task very thoroughly, and then creating the appropriate tools. We have been doing this very thoroughly and extensively for many years. We have developed work tools, simulation programs, and measurement technology, which includes a reflection-free space. These things are part of it. Now, in the course of making HF products, such as smart ones, spaces are needed where HF technology can also be measured.
Now, you not only develop the measurement technology around it, but you also completely develop and manufacture your chassis and components in-house.
Yes, on one hand, that is of course a task, but on the other hand, it is nice because you can optimize things down to the smallest detail. It starts with the choice of materials for the diaphragm, the voice coil, the corresponding mountings, how the surround is, what form factor it has. All these topics can of course be optimized and coordinated in detail with each other. We don't just buy a part from somewhere on the market and then apply it into a housing, but we can essentially consider and optimize everything in interaction, ensuring that each component works harmoniously together. And then at the end of the day, a corresponding sample comes and it is thoroughly tested with the appropriate measurement technology that we have developed, then measured again. And these data also come back into the simulation program in interaction. How was my simulation? How accurate was my simulation? And when that has happened, and you have also successfully achieved your personal target functions, then we proceed to the listening test. So everything that happens beforehand, and the listening test, it must be said clearly, is still one of the most important components of development. That will never change. We truly and deeply want the embodiment of reproduction, and that brings the corresponding emotional experience. And that is the beauty of our topic, that we build a technical product through interaction that provides a lot of emotions.
Now we are already on the topic, namely the production of, for example, a single chassis. How should I imagine that? What do the individual steps look like?
We can take a mid-range speaker from the reference as an example, and basically it looks relatively straightforward at first. But what we are doing, for example, in our factory in the Czech Republic, is that we are dealing with the disassembly of the magnets from individual parts in manufacturing. It is of course also magnetized accordingly, and it is then pre-checked to see if it has the level of magnetization that we need. But, for example, we purchase the magnet, iron parts, we buy ferrite parts in the corresponding tooling manner, and they are then assembled and glued in our factory in the Czech Republic. The individual steps are as follows. First, the diaphragm is connected. The diaphragm cone is connected to the voice coil. The basket is connected to the magnet. Next comes the centering, which is then fitted in a floating manner. The centering, diaphragm and basket are joined together. And finally, the corresponding dust cap is placed on the front.
Another very important part of a speaker is the crossover. It is also created here in-house or with your partners.
So here we have, as an example, mid-high frequency network of the reference GS. We have special suppliers for coils, capacitors and resistors from Germany, and accordingly also regarding the board material. So here at the reference, for example, we use 75, which is already a relatively high strength regarding the surface quality and strength of the boards, 2001 of Lear Outits. And we also simplify this in the factory in the Czech Republic. The same applies to the wiring. We have a 6-fold individually twisted cable that winds around a core to provide a homogeneous ratio of capacitance and inductance. We also produce this in-house. Furthermore, of course, on the other side, when dealing with active electronics modules, as is the case here, with our smart floor standing speakers or bookshelf speaker enclosures. Here we naturally have an appropriate audio precision device where we can measure all parameters of the electronics. Here we can generate almost up to 600 watts of pulse power, and that in this relatively compact space. So, for that, we have a complete measurement setup in-house where we can check the target parameters that we can also verify beforehand, for example, through simulation of such a power amplifier electronics.
In addition to the delivery, I just saw a parts warehouse with speaker components. What is this room about?
We have what is called a small parts warehouse, where we equip all components found in the speaker on packing carts so that we can directly bring all screws, the Canton logo, the crossovers and the connection terminal to the respective production line, ensuring a very quick transition from one model to another in production.
What does the process flow in the production process look like?
We have a total of 4 production rooms here, and the process is the same in each room. That means it doesn't matter whether we are manufacturing a compact speaker, a floor-standing speaker, an active speaker, or a subwoofer. We always start with the housing, and we thoroughly check the housing for any unevenness in the paint, scratches, etc. If it has passed the quality standards, it then goes onto the production line, and the next 2,000 steps are initiated. We equip the speaker with the terminal connections, electronics, or the corresponding crossovers, and in the next step, these are then connected to the chassis, either plugged or soldered, depending on the model. And then it continues to the next step, which is to screw the chassis to the housing. Sometimes the cover rings are also added at that point, and in the final step, of course, the most important step. The speaker is acoustically measured, meaning we have a microphone, always at the same distance from the speaker to the respective mid-range, bass, or treble system, and the individual areas are then measured. There is a target value, and the measurement must fall within that target value. And if the speaker passes the acoustic test, it is then packaged, placed on a pallet, and comes to our warehouse, ideally going directly to the dealer.
One of the 4 production rooms differs slightly from the others.
Here we specifically manufacture the very, very large speakers, whether it's the Reference GS, the Reference 1, or other very large floor-standing speakers from us. They are simply manufactured separately, in a larger area with different production carts that we have here, which are height adjustable so that the colleagues can also produce everything in a back-friendly manner. And that is why we have set up this room differently than production rooms 1 to 3.
One detail still puzzles me. What is the significance of the wooden boxes?
The good old Canton wooden boxes have indeed been a very, very essential part for us for decades in terms of sustainability, as the boxes have existed for over 50 years and were already used back then to transport small parts from one location to another. And since we have the factory in the Czech Republic, the boxes are used in such a way that we transport all chassis, high frequency, mid frequency and low frequency systems in the wooden boxes. This way, we can ensure that we produce no packaging waste and act very, very sustainably regarding this issue.
Canton has grown in the German market and has further developed. What does it look like with the distributions in the global market? How large is the company structured? For example, in terms of employee numbers.
So we currently have about 120 employees. It fluctuates a bit. So we have 70 employees here at the location in Weilroth, Germany, and the employees in the Czech Republic, which are Canton employees. From day one, we currently have 50 employees. The main business, the core business, is still in Germany, and then it extends around Germany into the neighboring countries and continues further. And the distribution is currently such that in recent years we have made 70% in Germany and 30% outside of Germany, actually all over the world.
What scale of quantities is Canton exactly thinking and working with today?
If we take the last 3 to 4 years, we sell approximately between 90,000 to 100,000 loudspeakers per year. That does not only mean sales, but we also manufacture everything in Czechia, namely all the individual parts. We build approximately 240,000 chassis every year in Czechia to use for our speakers.
You're already mentioning it, speakers for home use, but there are now also other business areas. Keyword, smart speakers. What else is currently happening at Canton?
Smart is a very large project, or rather it has now become a product line of ours. It was launched about 5 years ago out of interest, because I kept asking Frank, why don't we have wireless speakers? And that we launched these smart products 5 years ago was exactly the right thing to do.
Frank, keyword, smart speakers. What is needed to develop and manufacture one?
What is needed for this? So here, for example, you need an electronics module. So with the classic speaker, we have a chassis, speaker chassis, a passive crossover, and we have external to the speaker, so to speak, a pre-equipment that consists of an amplifier and corresponding source. Here on this module, several things are already integrated. Amplifiers, then signal processors that perform frequency response management, and on the other side, the connection to the cloud, so USAND, to the corresponding network, to the content that is available. This is a big component that we not only use on such platforms, but also, of course, for example, now in the automotive industry, optimizing the sound waves related to the listening position, essentially, for each respective listening position. The frequency response is tile aligned so that it produces a harmonious sound image, or EG. It results in a specific front staging, or on the other hand, can achieve a surround effect. We do this by developing and placing on such platforms.
And what other business areas does Canton occupy today and in the future?
On one side, we have hi-fi speakers in the classic stereo sense. Then we have multi-channel sets. We have also grown up with the fact that we have developed, produced and sold multi-channel sets very successfully. Then we have the topic of custom installation. Custom installation is also an important point. For example, here we might move away from the piston driver in terms of parts that resonate more, something that will be represented in the future. We are also very active in the development area with soundbars and small speakers that can flexibly connect each product to one another for multi-room and indoor wireless connections. And once again, briefly on the smart topic, that we connect the world of passive speakers with active speakers in one product within our system concept. And that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, it's about listening to music, conveying fun and conveying emotions. And that is the drive that I actually have. That's what it's about. And I believe one must never forget this in all the work. And that is also the good part, because that is what brings the most joy.
I now understand sustainability not just in the sense of doing something environmentally friendly and ecological, but sustainability. We have actually been practicing sustainability since the founding of the company for over 50 years. Because if a customer has a speaker, if something is broken, if a chassis has broken, it can certainly happen that in 50 years or in 40 years, whatever, a chassis breaks. As long as the raw material is available, especially the membranes, you're always able to restore or recreate it. Such repairs take place here with us, and it is not uncommon for customers to come here with a problem and leave with a smile.